Hi, my name's Brooke Russo.
Hi, I'm Cameron, and today we'll be teaching you about the Women's March on Versailles. You may be asking, what did the Women's March on Versailles have to do with the French Revolution? Well, don't worry, we will tell you everything you need to know about this topic.
In France in the year 1789, a large gathering of women marched from Paris to Versailles to confront the King and Queen of France. How many marchers were in the crowd?
That is a great question. The King and the Queen traveled back to Paris with the crowd. By this time, the crowd had grown from 7,000 marchers to 60,000 marchers. After they returned from the march, the King went to live at his palace in Paris. He would never again return to his beautiful palace in Versailles. During this time, France was at a poor economic state due to the money spent on war and royal extravagance. This poor French economy equaled finding food for very high prices, which the commoners could not afford, especially bread, which was the main food for the commoners.
Most families couldn't even afford a loaf of bread due to these extreme prices. Now picture going to the market and seeing these outrageous prices just for bread.
The French people were not very happy.
Were there only women who marched in the crowd?
Although it is often referred to as the Women's March on Versailles, men were also included in the crowd as well.
The crowd, which marched around 13 miles to get to the palace, suggested that they should directly confront the king and the queen about the economic problems that they had been facing.
Why did they target Marie Antoinette as well as the king?
A large number of individuals in the crowd demanded to see Marie Antoinette specifically. This is because her lavish spending angered them. They were enraged at the queen because they couldn't even manage to afford bread while she lived in luxury at the palace of Versailles. Even when the crowd initially broke into the palace, they went looking for Marie Antoinette first, who barely escaped.
On a long march to Versailles, 6 hours to be exact, in the pouring rain, the crowd arrived to the palace.
Finally, King Louis XVI agreed to return to Paris along with the crowd. He also promised to distribute food to those who needed it.
How did he announce to all the people that he was sharing his food?
During the riots of the angry protesters at the Palace of Versailles, Louis XVI addressed the crowd from one of the balconies of the palace. From here, he agreed to meet the demands of the protesters and return with them to Paris, as well as give bread to those who needed it.
While some of the group left after the agreement, many people stayed to continue to protest. Early the next morning, some crowd were able to get into the palace. Fighting broke out and some of the guards were killed. Eventually, peace was restored by Marquis de Lafayette, the leader of the National Guard.
On the balcony, Lafayette knelt before the queen and kissed her on the hand. This pleased the protesters who were enraged at Marie Antoinette.
In France, during the 18th century, both poor men and women had a hard time providing for their families. This led them to march to the king and demand equal food opportunities. The Women's March on Versailles was a major contributing factor to the French Revolution.
The king and queen were both executed about 4 years after the march. Only 6 women from the crowd were admitted to the palace to speak directly with King Louis. The crowd, along with King Louis, the assembly, and other royal officials, left for Paris that same day.